Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the HodlCast. I think this is episode actually 77, and I'm here with very special guest, Allen Piscitello.
You got it. Thanks for having me on, Sasha.
He's from Blockstream, and going to tell us a little bit about what he's been working on there with the liquid sidechain and the satellite, and how you got into the space, all the good stuff. So actually, let's just start with your background and who you are and how you got into Bitcoin.
Yeah, so I've been in Bitcoin quite a while. I go back to 2011, so it's, I guess, a pretty OG. At the time, I felt like I was too late and I missed the boat because the price, by the time I got my money in Mt. Gox, it had gone to a ridiculous $7. So it was way too high at that point, so I didn't buy very much. And I'm also one of the worst investors in the space as well. So for being someone who's been around a while, no, definitely don't listen to me on trading. So I know a lot about the tech now over the years, been involved in the community for a long time, and was working on the side, just doing regular software engineering jobs for quite a while, but always was just drawn to Bitcoin in general and Blockstream, and fortunately had the opportunity to join Blockstream about a year and a half ago now, and I've been leading the product team. So it's mainly focused on liquid at first, but now kind of expanding to all of the products, and everything's starting to all come together as kind of a unified story. You can see all these pieces that we're building that maybe seemed separate are now all starting to come together. It's a really exciting time to be a part of Blockstream.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell us just an overview of what is Blockstream? How many people are working there? What's the main function of the company?
Yeah, so Blockstream was founded back in 2014. It was founded by a lot of people who were involved in the core development of Bitcoin, a lot of people with cypherpunk backgrounds, really ideological people who really want to see Bitcoin succeed. And this is a time when Bitcoin was not really that well funded for development. And so, the whole blockchain hype started to really happen around then. There was starting to be a lot of venture capital actually forming, and so the company was founded on the idea of something called sidechains. And so the sidechains white paper was something that was created by a lot of the original founders of Blockstream. The idea is that you can move Bitcoin to this other network, and the Bitcoin itself now can have different properties. So these other properties can, things that are not possible to do on the main Bitcoin network. And that's either because it's fundamentally changes some feature of Bitcoin, or it's just something that's maybe not ready, and changes on the Bitcoin network are hard and slow. And so we viewed sidechains as a way to really show the full power of Bitcoin without having to create like a new cryptocurrency. So kind of everyone was creating an altcoin at that time. Altcoins were real big. Sidechains really seemed like that was going to be an answer for, we're creating altcoin because we can't do this on Bitcoin. And so, we started on this idea of sidechains, and this is before I joined, but the first sidechain we created was Liquid. And this is a sidechain that is really built for interchange settlement and asset issuance. So one of the key differences between that and Bitcoin is the Bitcoin blockchain itself, it basically requires mining. And mining is not deterministic. It could take a minute to get the next block, it could take a second to get the next block, or it could take 3 hours to get the next block. And really nothing is going to change that. There's no, if you lowered the block time, you reduce security because you just basically mean there's going to be more rollbacks and orphaning of blocks. So if you're doing trading applications where you need something to move quickly, you need reliability. And so Liquid changes that security model from being miners to being a federated model. And that means that there's blocks now every minute instead of non-deterministic randomness of mining. And so this lets traders move very quickly. And then the other big part of Liquid that's very important for trading is the idea of confidential transactions. So this is also another idea that some founders of Blockstream created. And the idea is you can still have a transaction that everyone in the world can look at and validate and prove that what is going in is the same thing as what's going out, but have no idea how much or even what asset is being transferred. So it's really kind of fits into our idea of privacy, but still having that full public verifiability of what's going on. So this is a key part of Liquid. This is really important for trading because you can now move your funds without revealing how much you have of anything, or even that you are moving that. So someone can front run you. They can't identify how much funds you have. And it's really important. And also, because it is a federated model, even the people who are creating the blocks have no idea what's being transacted. So that really helps. Even if it is federated, it does add some ability to resist censorship.
Mm-hmm. So what would be the difference of these federated side chains compared to something like the counterparty? Would that be a side chain on Bitcoin as well?
So I call a counterparty more of a meta protocol layer. So what it is it's basically adding extra data on the Bitcoin blockchain that people who are interested in it can read it and process it in another way. So it's I'm trying to think of the word for this right now. It's you're basically
There's something I've heard it described as the transactions, like it's one-way or two-way reading from the blockchain.
yeah, basically it's like a parasite, where it's kind of a negative way to say it, and I don't mean that in the other way, but it needs a host to survive, right? So you have something where it basically feeds off of something else. The underlying thing doesn't necessarily know about it or even benefit from it, but it is. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about counterparty, but that's basically it's a parasitic chain where it's just all this extra data that's being processed in a certain way. And counterparty did it in a way. The big difference with counterparty is counterparty created their own token, and it was done through a burn of Bitcoin. So that Bitcoin that you burn to create the original counterparty tokens is never coming back. There's no two-way peg. There's no ever recovering it. You're just able to do things now with this counterparty token. So that there's disadvantages to why you'd want to do that. You basically have another form of money. Mm-hmm. Money has a very strong network effect, and that's something why we view sidechains as beneficial. Is you have the same underlying money, and being kind of a very Bitcoin-centered company. That's why something like Liquid is particularly interesting to us as a company. Is you're now enabling Bitcoin to do more things without having to create an altcoin.
Mm-hmm. And can you issue tokens on the Liquid network?
You can issue tokens on the Liquid network. And so this is kind of what's the difference between that and an altcoin? And I guess the idea is there's still a lot of assets in the world that aren't cryptocurrencies. Mm-hmm. And so you still have fiat in the world for now. I don't know, that probably will happen, still be around for a long time. And again, while there's on-ramps for Bitcoin, there's going to be the need for converting fiat currency into Bitcoin or trading it. And so representing that on a blockchain actually adds a lot of convenience because banks are closed at a lot of hours. And so, we've seen Tether do this over the years, and we've seen many others enter the space recently as a way of convenience to do this. And so that's one reason for it. We're here talking about securities as well, which brings us together face to face. And securities is another interesting thing on Liquid. So the idea is you could have this token that represents a share in some company or a loan or some other financial instrument that can be traded around. And one of the benefits with Liquid is because Liquid supports these assets at the native level, I can settle these assets without any counterparty risk and for Bitcoin or any other asset that's on Liquid. So that's kind of why we view Bitcoin as special here. Bitcoin really has the potential to be the underlying settlement instrument for the world's securities. And that's something that's really exciting for anyone who's kind of like a hardcore Bitcoin maximalist.
Would everyone have to buy Bitcoin before they get whatever security is issued through Liquid?
So you do need Bitcoin on Liquid to be able to pay transactions. Okay. And that's basically, you could buy it just, even if you didn't care about Bitcoin, you could buy it just to, pay for it like you're buying stamps at the post office, right? It's just something that needs to go to, make your transaction included in the blockchain. But if you could trade any asset for any asset on Liquid, but the idea is, Bitcoin's a little special there because any asset that has a central issuer, you need to still go and redeem it. So all the stable coins that are out there, you still have to trust that you're going to be able to redeem that for some underlying instrument at a bank or that someone's going to accept it. Or it's an algorithmic one, and you have to trust that the algorithm stays true. Or if it's another security, you're trading a security for security, you can do that, but securities are generally pretty poor forms of money because you don't want to have to go to the store and use Apple cards to pay for your groceries. They don't necessarily know what to do with it. It's not necessarily the most liquid asset. So that's why money forms a good base layer for settlement, because you can use it to buy anything. And Bitcoin is I think one of the best forms of money ever created, because there is no one in control. It's global. It's something that's uncensorable. No one can stop it, and limited in supply. So I think it's going to be a natural fit, and that's something to be excited about. Liquid.
So with the securities market, if it was something that could clear all the securities around the world, so it wouldn't matter the country's jurisdiction. If you were issuing a security on Liquid, you could issue a U.S. security to someone in China and then pay out in Bitcoin, which they could then convert to their native currency to spend, on a car or something there.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about securities, and this is kind of the challenge, is generally they're going to be issued by some person with a jurisdiction somewhere. There's an address where you can go and find that person. You know who they are. So it's not like securities are necessarily going to just jump over all the regulations out in the world, unless you're running your business like an illegal operation. Mm-hmm. Chances are there's going to be somewhere that you could have this. Now, it could be possible to make this easier to, right now, if you're trying to sell a security to someone in China, there's capital controls. There's a lot of how are you going to actually settle this asset? You need to get their currency and convert it, having an underlying global currency like Bitcoin for it. As long as you can satisfy the regulations that the issuer of the security doesn't care about, then it should make it easier.
And so the issuer itself would, in this scenario, likely be responsible for all the regulations, meeting their own countries, like the SEC's regulations, knowing their customer, everything like that would be done by the company, and then they would use your platform, the Liquid chain, as sort of the vehicle. Like it would be like the the stock exchange for it, or further removed, it would be like the website for it.
Yeah, so you could so the issuer itself basically needs to create the asset and distribute an asset that's compliant with whatever rules that they are subject to, and you can use things in Liquid to help enforce that. So one of the things you can do is like a multi-signature contract, where there's some person who's authorizing the transfer of these assets. Because Liquid does have a lot of great privacy features, you can do a lot of these compliance checks in ways that are still very private. So for an example, you could have a security where you just need to, it's only eligible for people in Wyoming to trade.
Okay.
And if you did that, all you need is people to kind of list a set of public keys of people that are in Wyoming, and you could register that.
How would you verify those public keys that they're in Wyoming?
So you'd have to do KYC, the same process that you would use for any security. Okay. So someone's going to have to maintain this master list. Now, right now,
so you could do the same thing for if someone's an accredited investor.
Exactly, accredited investors only in
on a
or whatever
list, on it,
exactly,
something like that. Okay.
Now the thing that's interesting about Liquid that's possible to do this is we use this exact same system for our payout mechanism. So what happens is, I guess I can jump back to that and go forward, is when you want to peg out Bitcoin from the Liquid network, right now we have what's called there is a whitelist for it, so that it can only go to the members. And that's really for a security reason. We want to eventually kind of remove that and make it open for anyone to peg out. Mm-hmm. So just kind of the nature of how it's signing transactions, we have to do it this way. But the beauty of it is we still wanted to at least preserve as much privacy and make it kind of as censorship resistant as possible. We didn't want the Federation members to gang up on each other to prevent one of them from pegging out a transaction, mm-hmm, or even identifying how much they're pegging out. So what we can do is we can actually, there's a list of people in the whitelist, and when they submit their peg out request, they can prove that they're one of the members without revealing which one, and prove that the money is being sent to some address derived from that, mm-hmm, but not reveal which one. And so this is kind of interesting on the security side, is if you wanted to prove that it was going to someone in Wyoming, all you need to know is the master wallet IDs of people in Wyoming, mm-hmm, and that person could submit a proof and say, look, I would like to receive this. Here's my proof that I'm allowed to receive it at this address, but I'm not going to even tell you which person I am, and it can transfer it. So this means you don't necessarily know who it is. Now, some securities, you have to know who your investors are anyway, and you'd have to reveal more information. But this is just an example of how you could still satisfy regulatory requirements while being extremely private, which is, I think, something that's new out there, because it's really hard to do that without these cryptographic proofs, to just verify information without knowing the specifics of it.
Oh, this seems like a good bridge for right now, the way things are going with the KYC. It's like everything you need to disclose so much, and it's so hard for the company collecting the information to keep that very sensitive data safe as well. So this way.
Yeah, and actually, I was speaking about that. I know we're not supposed to talk about different ideas that people talk about, but this is a good one. I don't think I'm just going to proactively say you probably wouldn't mind me sharing this. Is you could collect this information, and right now anything that's electronic is extremely vulnerable to being stolen. How many companies have had their records stolen of social security numbers and passwords and all kinds of things. And what you could really have is you could have someone verify this all with paper. And it just stays in a filing cabinet somewhere, which is a lot harder to hack. You have to actually break into a building and get all this information. And you could just put the information that's, not anything that's vital to get out is the only part that actually lives on a computer. And this is kind of an interesting way that you can still enforce all of these rules. You just basically have a list of public keys that are in these wallets, and they're in different groups. And if someone wants to make a change, they have to go to the filing cabinet and figure out who's who and update it that way. So
back to 1975.
And for verification of public information, it's kind of scary. Anyone who's registered at a Bitcoin exchange is known, like they want your passport and
your photo,
blood sample, and everything about you. And you have to trust that they're going to store this information.
Oh,
securely.
and they don't. I'm sure they don't.
It's really hard to do.
Oh, that's I'm really glad to hear that people are working on these kind of solutions. Yeah, that's excellent. And how many assets have launched on Liquid so far?
Yeah, so the good and the bad thing about Liquid is it's very private. So there's certain things we can see and certain things we can't see. So someone always asks, like, how much money is moving through the system? I don't know. We don't necessarily know. Creating an asset is something that is visible. I think there's been something like 2,700 assets people have created.
Oh, wow.
And that's the thing, is it's so easy to do. You can download a Liquid node from our GitHub. You can run it. You can launch it. If you have a little bit of Liquid Bitcoin to pay for something, you can create your own asset in like 5 minutes. So it's as easy as just calling a single command. You don't need to write a smart contract. So I have no idea. Those 2,700 assets, they could be someone doing every stock that's on the Russell 2000 plus 700 more, or it could be 2,700 people just messing around. I have no idea. And that's kind of the beauty of it, is it's able to do this. And again, we have a lot of assets right now. We have it's still great room for growth. There's a lot more transactions throughput that's even possible.
And so is there anything that you at Blockstream need to do to facilitate it once they've done their asset, or just by putting the technology out there, they handle everything?
Yeah, and actually, that's kind of an interesting point, is Blockstream really has zero control over Liquid. So we don't run a node. We run nodes, but we don't run the functionaries. It's all run by the members of the network, and we're just a technology provider. So the idea there is we don't want to have any power at all, and they could fire us if they wanted to. So we really don't really have any power in there. Now we have some ability to monitor what's going on, but so does everyone else. So the tools that are used to monitor the number of assets out there, the number of transactions, and this is something that's all actually open source, and anyone could run this and verify any information. So we don't have any control. You just run the node, you connect. What they do is you run a node, it connects through a bridge that the functionaries have open to the general public, and they propagate transactions in. And again, the functionaries have no clue if it's you sending one or if it's one of their peers. It just, to them, it appears like it's just some transaction going from one address to another, and that's all it knows. Doesn't even know what's transited.
That's really cool. And then can you tell us a little bit about the satellite as well? I heard your talk in Atlanta at the TAP conference, and it was really fascinating. And then I had Dr. Brian Goss on the other day, and he is running a satellite, like he's using your satellite from home. So if you could just kind of tell everyone a little bit about it as well.
Yeah, the satellite definitely is something that's gotten a lot of attention. So Actually, the first announcement of the satellite was, I think, right before I joined the company. And the idea is that we're streaming down the Bitcoin blockchain from space. And why that's important is, if any part of the world's network infrastructure gets disconnected, now they still have reliable access to get blocks. And beyond that, you can be in a lot of remote areas where you don't necessarily have good internet connections. You can't download the blockchain, but you may want to be able to keep up with things. Mm-hmm. And so, as long as you're synced up to that day, and there's lots of ways to distribute the blockchain in bulk. You could, get a USB drive and just have the blocks up to a certain point and validate everything, and then just catch up from certain points over the satellite. So we launched it with, I believe it was North America and Europe at first. We launched this second phase of it last year, which was going to Asia. And so I think it's a total of 5 or 6 different satellites. It's basically reusing satellites that are already up there for doing television.
How did you get the blockchain into the satellite?
Yeah, so it's through ground stations. There's a couple of them around the world. And basically they're in places where they can talk to 2 different satellites. So, they all have a connection to a node through their normal internet, but even if their internet goes out, they're still talking to one of the other satellites that could get it from a different ground station.
Okay.
So these are things right now, this is how satellite TV is broadcast. And it's kind of the other beauty of it is this is just off the shelf, normal satellite hardware you could buy. You don't need to buy like a massive dish or have anything that's even, conspicuous. It's basically a normal satellite pointed at a satellite that is actually for television. So if you go to a city that has 10,000 of these satellite dishes up, no one knows which one's watching television and which one's listening to the blockchain. Mm-hmm. So that can be very important for areas where it may be difficult to run Bitcoin, and you may not want anyone to know. You don't want to put a big target on your back.
Yeah, saying, here I am. I love Bitcoin so much. I got a satellite.
I have seen people put Blockstream stickers on them or Bitcoin stickers on them. You do that at your own risk. You're kind of identifying yourself as a Bitcoiner. That's something that everyone wants to do, but it's the exciting part. And then the last part of it is we let the ability for anyone to use our satellites to send any message they want. And so we did this through Lightning Network, and it's really cool. You can create your Lightning node. You can pay, just a couple of Satoshis to send a message through the satellite. You're bidding against everyone else who could send messages, and then your message gets broadcast through space. So we've had a lot of interesting things. The lightning torch is going around. We actually had Samson, when he got the lightning torch, he made someone send an invoice over the satellite. And one of the things that happened then is he also got rickrolled from space. So I think it was the first rickroll from space that he was looking for the satellite invoice, and someone refused to actually send him the invoice, and instead sent him a nice ASCII version of Rick Ansley with the lyrics of the song. So there's been blog posts from some guy from Eastern Europe talking about his experience growing up and how Bitcoin's inspired him, and just he didn't know if anyone would read it, and it kind of made the round. So it's really interesting the types of things people can use this technology for, and we don't even know.
It surpasses any speech barriers, so people in North Korea could read what has been projected on the blockchain satellite. Is that?
Assuming we can have satellite dishes. I don't know if they have satellite dishes in North Korea, if they'll let them do that. But
yeah, okay.
That would be the one restriction. Now, if they have satellite dishes to have television there, then they certainly could have access to anything. And that's the beauty. And the thing is.
And what could the governments do to try and stop this? Say they wanted to. I guess it would just be attack the ability to have satellite. They'd say no more satellite TV.
So they'd have to go after people who had a dish. The other things that they could do is they could try to run radio wave interference over certain areas, but you'd also be blocking out all of the television shows that are on there. And then, worst comes to worst, you could shoot down a satellite from space, which I think is probably against some international laws that probably frowned upon for doing that type of thing. So
they've probably never had a desire in the past or need these TV shows. I guess like if something was.
Well, there's military satellites that are up there. There's a lot of satellites that I'm sure some governments would want to shoot down, but as far as I know, it hasn't happened. So yeah, it takes a lot to go after. Then if they go and then the ground stations are the other choke point. So we have a couple of them around the world. One of them could go down, and two, I think as long as only one of them goes down, it's okay. If two of them go down, then you're basically knocking out one satellite of being able to broadcast.
Mm-hmm. And one thing you had said at the TAB conference was that this is really beneficial for if there's an earthquake or something and people lose internet connection, they could end up on the wrong chain. Their nodes could, but if they connect to the satellite, it'll bring them back up to date.
Yeah. So for mining, I'd say it's very important. So if you're mining, the worst thing you could be doing when you're mining is not necessarily seeing the current block that you're mining. So you're basically wasting electricity trying to create a block that someone's already found. And if you don't know that there's been a new block, you have no clue. And so what you do is you keep mining. And if let's just say you isolate, there's a cable break, and 1/3 of the world's mining power is, isolated. They're going to still make blocks, and it's going to still, happen for a while. And they're not even going to necessarily realize that they're mining another chain. But eventually the internet will get fixed. The nodes will now see, oh, there's a longer chain somewhere else. And all that work that they did, all that electricity they burned has basically been destroyed and doesn't actually secure Bitcoin and basically was a waste. So if you have a satellite, you basically now have access to getting the current blocks. Now, you want to be able to broadcast those blocks out as well. So, that's the other challenge is how do you get this two-way communication out for doing it? But then, there are ways to do that with two-way communications that are possible. For transactions, it's very easy because transactions are small enough. You could even put like in an SMS. Blocks are a little harder, but you at least see, hey, I'm not getting the new blocks. I should at least shut down my power and not wasting more energy on that. So at least you have some out of that. And if you're receiving transactions, like you could be getting those blocks from those miners that are in your country and have no idea that they're not going to be valid. And basically now someone can get a nice chance to double spend against you.
Oh.
So there's a lot of different reasons why you'd want to have that redundancy.
Mm-hmm.
And it just takes one node in wherever people are connected, satellite node to do this. It just doesn't mean like everyone has to have a satellite node to be redundant. You just need to be connected to someone or connected to someone who's connected to someone who has access to the satellite, and you're basically getting the latest blocks.
Okay. And how many people do you think are connected, or do you have any?
We have no idea. That's the only way we know is if people are posting their pictures on Twitter and whatnot. So I actually got to meet, I was in Japan recently, right before TabConf, and one of the gentlemen who was very interested in satellite is, we didn't have Asia support at the beginning, and he made a very interesting video explaining how he's setting it up and building the parts. And he basically set this up and pointed at the sky waiting for the satellite. And it was really cool because we got to go there right after we did the launch for Asia, and we got to meet with him and talk to him. He was very excited about what we're doing and the different applications that come from this. So it's something I think has inspired a lot of people. And again, if we don't know who they are, we have no idea. Like we're not charging for it. It's not something we can even stop. It's not encrypted. It's just point your dish at the sky, and theoretically there could be 1 million people doing it, and there could be 5 people and we wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And what is Blockstream? What else are you guys working on?
Yeah, so we just launched our Blockstream Green, which is we redesigned our what was formerly known as Green Address for our mobile apps. So it's on Android and on iPhone or iOS. So that means that it's a beautiful application. Our designer did amazing work on this. Our team worked really hard to get this together. So Blockstream Green is a non-custodial multi-signature wallet, which means we co-sign transactions on it. But let's just say Blockstream disappeared or became evil. You still have an out where you either go get a backup key that you have to be able to do this after a certain amount of time, or you wait a period of time to be able to spend it. So one of the reasons for this couple applications why we created this is actually something Lawrence Nahum created as his own company, and then Blockstream acquired his company, and now he's our chief architect. And so he's been really involved in this. But he wanted to create this, a couple of reasons. One, if you have a mobile wallet, you don't want to necessarily carry all your Bitcoin on it and lose it. So if you have something where you could put a limit of saying, hey, only let me spend $100 a day on this, your opportunity for loss is much less because you're now requiring Blockstream to be compromised for that. And the other part was to do something for instant payment. So the idea is that it would only sign something once. and if you try to double spend it, it would refuse. So as long as the person who was receiving it trusted green address, then they could trust that the payment would never be double spent. And so that was kind of one of the...
So it would cut down that wait time, like if a merchant wanted to accept the payment. Okay.
So that was kind of one of the kind of inspirations for it. So I don't think that use case has taken off too much. It's kind of it might not even be supported as much anymore, but it was kind of the inspiration behind it. So Green launched. It's a great wallet. It's always been kind of known as the Bitcoiner, like the hardcore Bitcoiner wallet to use, but now it's also beautiful and easy to use as well. So we're it's what some of the product team is working hard on, is turning these products also not just giving you the underlying tech, but also make them easy and beautiful to use. So next up in that is also going to be adding support for Liquid. So that will be coming very soon, and hopefully not too much longer after this podcast gets released. We also are planning on, we also have Lightning Network is something big that we're working on. So that's something that's been under development for a long time, and we've been, plugging away with the latest upgrades. We're, some of our engineers have made proposals to improve Lightning Network for some of the recovery cases to make sure you don't lose your funds if you lose your backups or have incomplete backups. We've been leading the way with the Lightning Store on our website to be able to buy things on our website. We've also been, the satellite comes into play with Lightning. And one thing that's also, we haven't talked a lot about, but I think is very important, is C Lightning, because it's, so similar to Bitcoin, it's built for Bitcoin, but Liquid is also built on the same code bases. It's possible to use Lightning Network on Liquid. Now, this means that you can send LBTC using Lightning Network, which is not necessarily that interesting because you can already do that on Bitcoin, but you can do that on any asset on top of Liquid. So if someone made a fiat stable coin and they wanted to make a Lightning Network for it, and there's sufficient number of nodes doing this, you now have Lightning Network being able to pay in dollars, or Lightning Network being able to pay your securities. So it's something that's a great skill.
Like kind of migrate the whole stock market over there, it would all be happening on the Lightning Network.
You could do that. Yeah, you certainly could. You'd want to have it for networks for each, you'd have like a separate network for each stock for those types of things.
It'd have to get it'd have to be as easy as it is to go on Ameritrade right now. But
yeah, I think it's more like something like stock. It might be okay with settling once a minute. For something like payments, like even a minute might be painful.
Yeah.
And again, it's a scaling issue too, because blockchains don't fundamentally scale. You can't ever capture retail level payments on a blockchain, so you need to have these higher levels. So if, a lot of the interest we've seen from some of the stablecoins that are out there is, well, they're happy with using them for trading Bitcoin, which is kind of a main use case right now, or other cryptocurrencies. But a lot of them have bigger aspirations for going out and actually being real payment alternatives. So that's when you can say no matter what blockchain you're going to use, you're limited to, at most like hundreds of transactions per second, which is not, and that's competing against every other use case of the blockchain. Whereas with Lightning, you could have millions of transactions per second, and that's just no big deal. And you can do it for small amounts or high amounts, and there's not any big cost in it. So that's something that's really exciting. It's good to see Lightning, develop. It's going to be great for Bitcoin. It's going to be great for Liquid. So you see Lightning coming together with Green. We're going to aim for adding support for Lightning and Green this year. So it's all coming together. We just need to get the satellite now involved in all this, and everything's going to be all tied together.
Yeah. Oh wow, it's really, really exciting stuff you guys are doing. Anything else?
I know there's plenty more that we're up to. It's it was a good exercise. We actually before the TabConf, I was in Mountain View. We were planning for this year, and we were writing on the whiteboard.
Did you have the whole team got together in person? That would be probably.
It was just the leadership team. We got the whole team together. We usually do like yearly offsites for the company, so we got everyone together. That was my first week on the job. Was our company offsite a couple of years ago. It was very intimidating walking into the room.
Yeah, it would be like
seeing all the people who I've seen over the years, and oh my goodness, I'm sitting next to them. Now after a year, it's kind of like old hat, so it's like different now. But yeah, we basically did
How many people are there?
There's about 60 people at Blockstream.
Okay.
So we did the whole Marie Kondo exercise of writing all the things we were building on a whiteboard, and we filled it all up and we filled another one up, and we had to really figure out like what does this truly bring us joy? Focus. Well, what brings us joy, right? It's,
okay.
You familiar with Marie Kondo?
No.
Netflix? Oh, well, she's she does like the people who have way too much clutter in their houses.
My friend told me about this because I'm about to move in with my fiance in DC, and he's got a lot of his grandmother's furniture that I don't particularly like. And my friends were saying, yeah, you got to ask if it brings you joy or something.
Yes, that's what it is. They should get you to dump all your clothes out of your closet. Start with the clothes, dump it all in your bed, and just start going through and ask if it truly brings you joy. People just, part of the exercise is to go and look at this huge pile right in front of you saying like, oh my, I really do have way too much stuff, and really focus on what's important. So that's one of the exercises. Like, there is an enormous list of things we're doing and want to do, and we want to make sure we stay focused and true on things that bring Bitcoin the most joy and bring Blockstream the most joy. And so it's a really exciting time to do that. And we're seeing everything to come together and focus on kind of unifying everything. One other thing I didn't mention too, and is something we're building called simplicity. So this is something that I see it's mostly Dr. Russell O'Connor is building it. It's a smart contracting language built from the ground up, and it's really based on a small number of primitives. So the idea is it's designed to be provably correct. So you can write a formal proof for something, and then that the code is doing exactly what you think it's going to be doing. And for something like a smart contract, that's essential. So this is something where if your smart contract doesn't you have a bug in it, and you can't verify that, you are going to lose money. And we've seen this with some other smart contract platforms. They're very easy to write, but they're very hard to write correctly. And so this is simplicity, simplicity is kind of the alternative to that. And so this is also something that's going to plug into Liquid and basically make super powerful smart contracts, but ones that are safe.
What's the extent that you can do with smart contracts? Because just even at this conference, I'm hearing all kinds of stuff, we'll bake that into the blockchain using smart contracts. And they're talking about like all the compliance in the world for every country, it's just too much. Like it makes my head spin. And so can you kind of give someone like me who doesn't know the extent of a smart contract, how do I tell if what someone's saying is too lofty and untrue, I guess?
I think there is some lofty aspirations, and sometimes people get lost in some of like, what are we solving and how, like what problem are we solving? So, with Liquid, the way we're going to do this, initially with securities is just through a simple co-signing mechanism. And the reason for that is in the end, in all of these smart contracts, it comes back to something in the real world. I need to verify an identity. I need to verify someone is actually who they say they are. I need to verify that they live in a certain state or a certain country, or that they've qualified themselves as an investor. And all of these things come back to a person. And so you can design all the complex smart contracts you want to do this, but they all need to be designed where some person can just like add someone to a list. And so having the smart contract execute all this means that it's all locked in stone in here. And it means every person who wants to validate the whole blockchain needs to care about executing this whole thing. And that's, the more complex it gets, the more gas it burns in something like Ethereum. And the more gas it burns, the more costly it is to move. The more people who are doing this, if you start actually having a serious number of securities on here, they're going to all compete with each other. And we saw Ethereum kind of break down when CryptoKitties got popular. So imagine if securities actually took off. Like, okay, you can put a couple of them on there.
Like the DAO hack or other smart contracts, I think a lot have been shown to be fairly vulnerable. So if we put the whole securities market on it, and one person can go in and steal out the whole, assets.
Exactly. So kind of Blockstream, we're taking a different approach to it, which is we want everyone to be able to verify that it was correct, but they don't necessarily need to execute that it's correct. So there's a lot of kind of interesting research projects on this of how can I prove that something executed correctly without executing it. And there's actually, this is something where you get into some zero knowledge proofs that can kind of prove that things are correct without revealing a lot of information about what happened. So, in the end, if something needs to have an external source of truth of data, there's no point putting that in a smart contract. Just have someone verify that and maybe put a hash of the execution on the blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you need, is just proof that it happened. So we're kind of taking a simple approach, and again, I think that will be more scalable. You'll be able to have more securities do this. You'll have more assets that are able to run without competing with each other. And also you can kind of protect yourself against, regulatory changes, or maybe there's a new country that's formed, or maybe someone just like completely banned securities and now your smart contract needs to be upgraded. And it's just a, logistical mess. And I think we've seen some of the, people out there that are doing this, trying to make some cross-chain compatible ones, is just put all the logic off of the chain anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you
so
could
that
put a
then
smart
you
contract,
can just plug it into
you can plug it into whatever you want.
And hopefully you it's all on Bitcoin if you can do it all on Liquid.
Yeah, so if you can do it on Liquid, I mean, that's the basic idea. It's not even on the Bitcoin blockchain, which is great.
Yeah.
It's not going to, people who are using Bitcoin aren't going to be having to compete with all these stocks. The security model for a stock is a lot different than Bitcoin, which is a bearer asset.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a security, there's some central issuer somewhere. So the censorship resistance
issuer, and you need to give dividends. And another big discussion I was having was whether you can just not know who, like, people are wanting the securities not to have KYC, but then they say you can still issue dividends even if you don't know who has your security through smart contracts, which I didn't know was possible, or I'm still very skeptical is possible.
Technically, it's possible. If you know what wallet has the token, you can pay a dividend. Now, legally, that's another story, and you're the more of a legal expert than I am, but you may have to withhold taxes for some.
Yeah.
You may have to.
I think you're always it's too much of a stretch for me to imagine a securities market that's global that you don't know who owns each security for each company. I just don't think it's a very big stretch from where we are today.
Yeah, that's the problem today, is people don't necessarily know who owns what stock. There's like 4 layers of intermediaries of who owns it.
You're supposed to know.
Well, you have seed company owns all of it, and then you have people who have claims to it through DTCC, through their brokers, through secondary brokers, and then finally gets down to who actually owns it. So that's kind of one of the problems that I think blockchains will solve. And I think looking at security tokens is like, why are they popular? And I think the one part why people are kind of interested in it is they saw the ICO mania, and they said, look at all this easy money we can get and raise a ton of money. That's great. Part of the reason why ICOs were able to do that was there was like no promises, there was no guarantees, there was no enforcement of anything, and you were just buying hope. Yeah. Like, it was basically tokenized hope. And I think that probably has dropped down a lot. So I think that mania reason to raise funds on a blockchain is maybe less, but I think there's other reasons why you'd want to have a security on a blockchain, and that's mainly that you can, you do have ownership. You don't have to go through these intermediaries, and you also have a way that you could trustlessly exchange it with someone else for another asset. And I think that's where Bitcoin comes in, is like you can use it as the settlement asset for every security in the world, and that's a massive market to capture.
Very exciting, yeah. And where can people find you?
Yeah, so Blockstream.com is we've got all our blog posts there. There's a lot of information we post out there at Blockstream. On Twitter, everything's out there. There's a lot of new developments and interesting technology that we're building.
Well, thank you so much for doing the podcast, and I've looked, just all of our conversations. I've always learned a lot from you. Very well spoken, and a huge source of knowledge, and doing a lot of really great things for the industry and the Bitcoin community in general. So thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Bye.